scale. Now you can add a couple things to that. For example, I like to take this part down here and it's just more stuff you're adding. And what I'll also try and do is add kind of almost like an almost part of an Allman Brothers-y type thing, and that scale is more that. And what that allows me to do is kind of play differently. Rather than playing up and down, it allows me to play a little bit more sideways, kind of like. Now, there's also other things I work with, stuff like this. That is more of an arpeggiated thing that you kind of want to, is more, I think, a signature sound. It doesn't necessarily work for as much, but I find between working with kind of a pentatonic thing and kind of stepping out and doing more of this, you know, more of the Allman Brothers-y type scale, it really helps a lot as far as my playing because it allows me to do more. And what that was is a lot of that just kind of came from a lot of the arpeggiated school. I mean, when the Bach rock type thing was kind of in, it was something that you just developed, and it was originally started as exercises down the neck, like. And what it was is it just kind of seemed to be more signature. For example, it was very kind of Randy Rhoads-esque type influence, and it was very cool to use. But as soon as I did it, it immediately took the whole piece and kind of threw it in that direction. So it's the type of thing that you want to have in your vocabulary to kind of step out a little bit, but at the same time, you don't want to be able, you know, to kind of revolve around it because then you're kind of locked into it. So it's something to work on. And there's other parts of it, for example, a lot of, which I did a lot. I tried finding ways of making the whole thing kind of weave into my style, which was an example like this one here. All right, what we're going to do now is I'm going to play a song off my third solo record, which is entitled Hairpick, and this song's called Rabbit Soup. Another topic that's often brought up is two-handed tapping or finger tapping, whatever it's called these days. And I think an interesting way to make this incorporate into your style is ultimately doing something and making something that sounds cool and not necessarily red flagging and letting people know that you're doing a two-handed thing. For example, when Van Halen came out and he did that, you know, the two-handed thing that he did, I mean, every kid in America was doing it, and that was a great thing, but it also kind of gotten done to death. So with that in mind, I really liked the approach of it. I just didn't like the redundancy of it because it had already been done. So with that in mind, I tried to find ways to bring it to the next step and kind of make it almost part of a song. For example, if you listen to my first record, which is Never Look Back, on one of the songs there, it's actually a rhythm part, and it kind of goes something like this. Now a slower one would be okay, obviously with that one, what you'll notice is that the song's in G, so the open strings I can work with are pretty much all. And that works well. So by trying to keep the open string rolling, what it does is it becomes part of the song rather than a solo piece. And by doing that, it allows me to keep an open string. And I always recommend working with open strings because it's something that gives you one more option. For example, if you're playing an A, the one thing I try and do with the wah pedal that's kind of a little bit different than other people is I try and use it more for a tone pop. And it's just, once again, because I only use a volume and a bridge and a neck pickup, it really helps me kind of ultimately get more out of the guitar, kind of like another effect that I do sometimes when playing, especially on the records more so than live, just because it lends itself better to the studio, is the effect I do with the delay, which is ultimately goes something like this. And if I did it without the delay, it would ultimately sound like this. Another effect that I did with the delay, which I did on my first two records, which was Never Look Back and the Plaid record, rather than hitting the delay in the string strictly with a pick and using a very hard delay, what I did is I used the volume and I kind of swelled them in, and ultimately rather than hearing, you heard, and the lick kind of goes something like this. Now, if I played that, once again, like the other lick, if I play it without the actual delay, it sounds like it. Okay, another thing that I also should point out is that I am using a quad reverb, which is basically just a reverb unit, and I have it through my effects loop so that I don't really pick up that much noise, and ultimately all it's used for is strictly reverb, so that I have a little bit of kind of like a little bit of a room sound after each note. If I played a note really tight, it would sound like this. And I just use it because ultimately it kind of gives it a little bit of a depth and allows me a little bit more leeway as far as playing, makes the guitar a little bit more comfortable to play. And also, because I have the voltage turned so far down in the amp, it also makes the amp a little bit spongier and allows me to make the chords really sizzle out, kind of like The best way you could really learn how to play and do anything like that is ultimately to go out and do it. You can sit in your room and become great, and then you'll be in front of people and you'll freak out and freeze and stuff, and it's just part of the whole learning process. The best way to do it, the best advice I could ever give you is just to go out and do it, and don't worry about being correct, and don't worry about holding your pick the right way, and don't worry about having perfect posture. Worry about going out and, you know, and having fun and getting the sound you want. That's the bottom line. There really is. As much as I want to, you know, say there's a right or wrong way, there isn't. My favorite players, once I've met them and talked to them, they did everything totally backwards, and it always worked. So with that in mind, you know, it's something to keep in mind as you're learning. As far as influences stuff, it's pretty wide-ranging, and just because I like a lot of stuff. But ultimately, as far as when I first started playing, I liked a lot of the rock stuff. I'm definitely not a jazz guy, and I'm not a swing, you know, person. I'm definitely into the rock and roll, the real straightforward, you know, stuff. Is originally what I was into. When I was younger, I liked, you know, Chuck Berry and Johnny Winter, because these guys really got out there, and I mean, they just got out there and cranked. You know, like when you hear the Johnny Be Good live from Johnny Winter, I mean, you could tell it was a bunch of guys just going totally crazy on stage, and I was definitely down with that. And then as I got older, I started getting into more and more accomplished players. Like I said, I liked people that were really distinctive. For example, I liked Brian May because he had his own unique sound, and I liked that. I really respect the fact that he didn't sound like anybody else. I liked Richie Blackmore, and just players like that, you know. And then I got into Van Halen because he just hit at such, you know, it was just so big when he hit that helped fuel a lot of stuff. And I also worked at a music store when I was like 11. From 11 to like 16, I worked like 1 day a week on a Saturday when I wasn't in school. And then that was really good for me because it gave me a chance to kind of see all the other local players and keep an eye on exactly what was going on around me. And so it helped me. Even though no one showed me really anything per se, I still learned a lot because I watched everybody else, and so I was pretty into that. And that was really a lot of the formative years, and I started practicing pretty seriously when I was like 13. So from 13 to like 15, I really actually sat down and practiced, and I haven't practiced since then, actually, which is sad but true. And just because now I'm more into you know, now that I've done the records, and I think I've kind of got this. I've got 3 records out now, and I've kind of definitely shown a lot of, you know, what I'm about and the style that I'm, you know, working towards, and so on and so forth. That I think now it's more, guitar for me is more about, you know, doing different things, keeping myself interested as far as coming up with new material and writing different stuff, and that's kind of where it's turned into right now, and that's ultimately where I'm at the moment. All right then, well, basically I think these are a lot of things that can kind of help you on your way to developing your own style, and hopefully this will inspire you to create some really new cool music. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank everybody very much for your time and patience, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.